What's up guys, welcome back to another Warzone video. Today I've got a great video for you. I'll be giving you the top 25 tips and tricks that actually help you get a lot better at the game and hopefully help you to get a lot more wins. But before we get into this guys, make sure you show any appreciation by dropping a like. I truly appreciate that. And also let me know if you have any tips of your own that you'd like to share down in the comment section, and anything that you think I have missed, even though we're going to cover a lot in this video. That would be much appreciated. And finally, help me get to 1k subscribers by smashing the subscribe button and turning on notifications so you don't miss a thing. Let's get on to tip number 1. Tip number 1, make sure you're running monolithic suppressor. This is something that is super important because not only do you get silence on the weapon you're using it on, but also gives you an extra damage range, and who doesn't want that? And if you're using it on something like an SMG, you're pretty much getting AR damage at further distances, which is really nice to have. And if you're using it on an AR, well then that's going to really make it easy to start knocking people in the distance, and they'll have no idea about where you're shooting them from. And now that you have your monolithic suppressor equipped, you should also throw on Ghost. This will hide you from the radar so that when enemies call in UAVs, they won't be able to see you whatsoever. This will give you a big advantage so that you'll be able to stay stealthy when enemies don't think anyone is near. Now moving on to tip number 3, what you want to be doing is always pinging enemies. This is super easy to do. All you have to do is press L1 on PS4 or up on the D-pad on Xbox. This will allow your whole team to see where the enemies are, and it will be really easy for your teammates to help you kill them. You don't want to be caught off guard because you didn't tell your teammates where the enemies are, because the chances are this will end up in your whole team dying. This leads me on to tip number 4, which is in the audio settings. So make sure you set your audio to boost low if you're using a headset. This is going to help your footsteps a lot easier, although I do have to say there are a lot of problems with footsteps in this game, so you're unlikely to hear every single one. Sometimes it cuts out and sometimes someone will be approaching you and you won't even have a clue. But most of the time it does work and it does help you in getting those kills. Now on to tip number 5. We are still going to stick to the settings. For this one it's going to be sensitivity. This is really important because the amount of long shots you will be performing in Warzone is really high, and I highly recommend a sensitivity any between 5 and 10. This is so that you can still turn on enemies pretty quickly but not be losing control at those greater distances. You're also going to want to lower your high zoom level to anywhere between 85 and 93. This is so that once you're actually aiming down the sight, your gun isn't going to be going crazy, and you'll be able to kill enemies nice and easily. Another tip that is super important is to do the self-revive. Once you have to use your self-revives, you want to make sure you revive yourself to about 95% of the way and let your teammate finish the rest. This way you can get to keep your self-revive and all your teammate has to do is hold square for literally 2 seconds. This is really effective. You also save yourself from buying another one, which I think are around $4,500, so that's something you may want to look into. Now speaking of self-revive, this brings me on to tip number 7, which is to make sure you finish everyone when you knock them, unless it's a teammate nearby and he's shooting at you, because then you're probably going to waste time and probably get shot at. But what you should be doing is completely eliminating enemies once you do it, so they don't self-revive and come back after you. Now for tip number 8, if you need to run faster around the map but only have heavy weapons, hold your kill streak like a cluster strike for example, in your hand, and that's going to act as if you're holding a knife, and you're going to be able to run around really fast. So if you have an M4A1 and a rocket launcher for example, make sure to hold your cluster strike to run faster. This will save you in many situations where the storm is pushing you. Moving on to tip number 9, you also want to make sure you're landing on high money locations. Spots for this are Superstore and any banks around the map. You usually get the most money around these areas, and Superstore is filled with a load of cash, especially when you start getting into gunfights and killing those enemies. It's really good. Now you also want to make sure you're always getting the high ground. This is super important, especially towards the end of the game. When you're on top of a building, you'll be able to see enemies a lot easier than they'll be able to see you. This will mean you can easily take them out and you won't have to worry about a thing. Now if they do end up knocking you, they'll have to make their way all the way up to the top of the building in order to finish you. And in this time you could easily pop a self-revive, or one of your teammates could revive you. And then you should be in the clear and not have to worry about a thing. Now on to tip number 11, which is something not many people surprisingly know about. This is that you can actually place trophy systems on top of a vehicle as well. This way, if an enemy throws a C4 or grenade or anything towards your car's trophy system will destroy it, keeping you alive and allowing you to keep running people over. So definitely go ahead and do that. Now another thing that I want to say is to learn a few locations in the map perfectly, like you know them literally off by heart. Land there every time and know how enemies play in that area. And know that when you drop there, you know where everything is, you know where to get your best route, you know where to get money, ammo and armor really fast. You'll also understand how enemies play in that area, and hopefully you will be able to take them out a lot easier. So once you land there more often, you're obviously going to get a lot better, so make sure you do that. Don't always change your landing spot, keep it simple, and once you get tired of landing in that spot, change it up and learn a whole new area. For tip number 13, I'm going to tell you how you can explode C4s really fast and literally have no wait time between when you throw it and when it explodes. So once you throw your C4 and it goes near the enemy, all you got to do is double tap the square button on PlayStation or the X button on Xbox. This is going to blow up the C4 really fast. There's no animation involved with this, so you can get back to shooting really fast as well. And this is how I do it. Now, something that is extremely important in Warzone is that make sure you practice your headshots, because these do a lot of damage, and this is where you exactly want to be aiming on the enemy. The best way to do this is to go into a game of multiplayer, go to find a match, and set the enemy team to bot. Put it on max amount of bot, and turn difficulty to maximum as well, and also set it to headshots only. Try to get a few hundred kills doing this, and then hop back into Warzone. You're going to see that you're automatically aiming at people's heads, and this is because you've been doing it for the last about 20 to 25 minutes. It's just aiming at people's heads. So make sure you do that. You're going to win a lot more gunfights doing this, and hopefully the enemies don't have as much practice as you, and they'll be shooting at your legs and not doing as much damage as you will, while you're shooting at their heads and doing the maximum amount of damage. Going down to tip number 15, when you get up close into gunfights, make sure to drop shot onto your enemies. This is really good. You got to get the edge on enemies. As long as you're unpredictable in these gunfights, you're going to catch them off guard, and they are most likely going to be missing their shots. Another movement I want to talk about for tip number 16 here is to slide into gunfights. This way they have no idea what you're doing, and you're able to move really fast while still shooting at the enemy, and they are going to have trouble shooting back at you. They are definitely going to be caught off guard. However, I don't recommend doing this at long range. You may want to do this at close range instead. Now guys, you always want to be hugging the circle or sticking to the edge of the circle. This is so you can catch people trying to run away from it or trying to camp near it, or anyone towards the centre of the circle as well. This will give you an easier time killing them. You also only have one or two directions where enemies can actually shoot you from. This is in front of you or either side of you. You should be very good with this, as it means that barely anyone will be shooting you from the back, and you don't have to worry about your back because it's not exposed because the storm is there, and you only have to focus on what is in front of you. This is something that is very effective in Warzone. Now your whole squad should be using UAVs at the exact same time to get an advanced UAV, which also reveals where the enemies are who are running Ghost, and also reveals what direction they are running in. And that is something you really definitely want to know, especially towards the final circle. And one thing that I want to say is when you start getting closer and closer to the final circle, you always want to stay in within 50 metres of your squad. Never extend this distance, as you don't want to be getting caught alone versus a whole entire squad and getting knocked down, and your teammates are left with one man short, and they cannot revive you because all the minis are right there. So always stay within 15 metres. Down to number 20 guys, never ever push buildings, never do it unless you really have to. The best way to do it is with RPGs and C4s like I mentioned, but if you could get away from it and hide somewhere else, don't push those buildings, it's definitely not worth it. Another thing is that when you're on top of rooftop camping, make sure that you put a claymore or a C4 near the doorways, so that when enemies actually make it to the roof, you'll be able to detonate those and they'll be able to do some damage before they're actually able to kill you. Another thing that I'd like to mention is that when you're playing solos, it's absolutely essential that you have a heartbeat sensor. This is because everyone camps in that game mode. You don't want to be the guy that doesn't have a heartbeat sensor, and if you can stay away from solos, man, please do. On to tip number 23. When you see a trip mine or a C4 on the ground, pick it up. Put the claymore down, put the trip mine down near a doorway and just leave them there. Pick up your other lethal that you already had and run away. You might get some free kills, you might get some free knocks, and you might stop the enemies killing you from behind. Now leading on from this, always place a trip mine or a claymore at a buy station. This is because if a player is going there to buy their whole team back, they could step on it and their whole team will be out, and you won't have to worry about that. And lastly guys, for tip number 25, you always want third party whenever you get a chance. If you see those teams fighting, let them fight. Leave it and wait it out. Once the last person is eliminated, that's when you want to push in and start taking people out. Once they're healing, looting, reloading and all that good stuff, then you can get some quick easy kills where they don't expect it. And there you have it guys, that's my top 25 tips and tricks for Call of Duty Warzone. I hope that you learned something new watching this video and you can go into your next game feeling more confident and getting more kills and hopefully get that win. So that's going to wrap it up for this video. If you did enjoy, make sure to like, subscribe and all that good stuff, and peace out.